Get those sheets with the participants' names?
That is a good question. Let me see if I can facilitate that.
Get those sheets with the part.
Judge Moss, did they have those in the orientation, or was it something that was just mentioned?
Well, my understanding is that the scores and the judge have to disclose if they have any conflicts. And I guess if I don't know anybody's names and I don't recognize anybody, I'm okay.
Before we call the case off the record, is there a representative from the plaintiff team who can introduce themselves and let us know a list of all of the participants for the plaintiff?
Hello.
Hi, is this Liza?
Yes, I'm the advisor for Liza.
And do you happen to have a list of the participants for the plaintiff side?
I do. Do you want me to send it to you?
That would be fine. Or if you have it and it's typed out, you are welcome to share your screen as well, if that would be okay, Judge Moss.
I can do that too. Let me run back to the other room.
And same thing for the defense. If you have something like that, that would be most appreciated.
This is the defense. Did you need like our trial roster?
That would be fine.
Okay, I'll have, I think we'll get it to you.
Okay.
Is this what you need for the prosecution side?
That's perfectly fine. Thank you. So looks like our participants are Elizabeth Clement, Alex Goyne, Nicole Gutierrez. Perfect.
Your Honor, that is also the order we will be calling our witnesses.
Okay. And I'm not sure who was just speaking, but you're a little tough to hear, just so you know.
Is this better, Your Honor?
That's fine. Thank you. Did you get what you needed from that, Your Honor? Okay. And then if the defense has something similar, that's very helpful.
Yeah, we're working on it. Just give us 1 second.
That's no problem. Your Honor, I think they could use my assistance in another courtroom. Are you okay if I, as the courtroom monitor, exit out? Perfect. Thank you.
Your Honor, this is the defense roster, but there are a few mistakes. Malia Bauer is not delivering the opening. Emily Duran is delivering the opening. And I think everything else looks good.
Okay, thank you. Give me just a second to write these down. All right, thank you. Any of the scoring panelists need more time on these names?
No, thank you.
Okay, Judge Moss, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for putting that up. I appreciate it. And are the plaintiffs' attorneys and witnesses ready?
Yes, Your Honor, we are ready.
Thank you very much. And are defendants' attorneys and witnesses ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Because of, I'm told because of bandwidth problems, I'm going to request that cameras remain off except for the active attorney. That means the attorneys either doing the opening statements for plaintiff and defense, they can keep their cameras on during the opening statement period, and active attorneys for each individual witness and the individual witness. So, for example, if Cameron Durst is going to be examined, the direct and cross-examining attorney and the witness, the person appearing as Cameron Durst, can keep their cameras on. I will keep my cameras on, but for bandwidth issues, I ask that everyone else keep their cameras off. We have the trial roster. Can I have the, in this round, the plaintiff's team code?
Our team code, the plaintiffs are Team Liza.
Okay, thank you. And the defendant's team code?
The defense is Team Andrews.
Thank you very much. It's a lot easier when we have things in paper in front of us, isn't it? Colorado Bar Association may be recording this, taking photographs, and by participating in the tournament, the team grants automatic permission to use those photos to the Colorado Bar Association. Anyone who's watching, who's affiliated or connected with other teams not competing in this round are asked to leave the courtroom. That includes people watching on the YouTube feed. There are two exceptions to that, which we'll get into later. No recesses will be allowed with the exception of those granted for a health emergency. That's especially true between the end of a witness examination and the beginning of closing arguments. I have discretion to stop the time for technical difficulties in this virtual courtroom. Let me ask each of the scoring panelists if you have any reason to be biased in judging of either team. Jonathan?
Yes, Judge Moss.
And Mr. Shibo?
No.
And
Your Honor.
Stephanie Farut, any bias for or against either team? And you're muted. Stephanie, I wasn't able to hear you. and any reason to be biased for or against any team member.
Your Honor, I've lost sound. If you're speaking to me, this is Ms. Farrow. Give me just a minute to see if I can
Oh.
fix it.
Okay, thank you.
Judge, I lost sound too, and I caught the question on the back end. So my answer is no, Judge Moss. I have no bias towards any team.
Thank you. For the timer and the lawyers and witnesses, if you see me wildly waving my
Your Honor,
arm,
this is Ms. Farrow. I'm going to log out and try and come back in and see if that corrects the problem.
or we'll wait. I'm saying if you see me wildly waving my arms, that means I've lost your audio. And do the same with me, because we'll need to stop the time and get that figured out. And I'll answer the chat question just as soon as we get the third scoring panelist back in.
It looks like it's finally connecting, Ms. Farrow.
I can hear you guys now. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's good. All right, there was a question in the chat by the timer. If anyone loses sound, please alert Judge Moss by turning on your camera and waving your arms. You can also put something in the chat, but we don't want anyone to miss anything. And also the timekeeper has asked if you'd like me to keep that camera on to show the time remaining, or type it in the chat. I think it's more effective for the lawyers and witnesses if you keep your camera on with the time cards showing for them. I indicated that anyone who's connected with the team not competing in this round must leave the courtroom, and that includes the YouTube video. There's 3 exceptions to that. Teachers and coaches can view any team from your own school. Teachers, coaches, or attorney coaches who are the parents of students competing on the team other than the team in this round may watch his or her own child. And an attorney, coach, teacher, sponsor, parent, sibling, or other spectator associated with the school of a mock trial team may observe another team's round if they obtain permission from each team participating in that round. I'm not sure how we do that in a virtual setting effectively, but you will need permission in that case. Any disputes arising out of the competition must be reported in accordance with the competition rules. Compliance with time requirements is considered in scoring of individual performances. I'm going to ask each side to introduce the participating team members as attorneys and witnesses. And if we can start, please, with the plaintiff's team, Team Liza.
Your Honor, my name is Elizabeth Clement, and I am the plaintiff attorney. I also have Nicole Gutierrez, who is also a plaintiff attorney, and then I also have Alex Goyne, who is a plaintiff attorney. For our witnesses, I have Campbell Tao as Dakota Weirs, I have Wyeth Paul as Carson Durst, and I have Tyler Brummage as Dr. Casey Rogers.
Thank you very much. And if we can have someone from Team Andrews introduce the attorneys and the witnesses, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Emily Duran. I will be providing the opening statement, directing Blake Doncourt, and cross-examining Dr. Devin Williams. Good morning. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Malia Bauer. I will be presenting the direct of Skylar Weirs and the cross of Carson Durst.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Mary Strasser. I will be direct examining Dakota Weirs, as well as providing the direct examination of Dr. Devin Williams and providing the closing for the defense.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Lorena Brady, and I am Devin Williams. Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Caitlin Conley, and I am Skylar Weirs.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Jamie LeMay, and I am Blake Doncourt.
Thank you. All right. Going to swear in the team members, people in the gallery, scoring panelists, and witnesses. For the virtual competition, witnesses are deemed to be sworn in, so I'm not going to swear you in separately. But please, team members, please raise your right hands. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? And please say, I will. Okay, thank you very much. I'll assume that was done. And gallery members, including teachers, attorney coaches, family members, and friends, please raise your right hands on the YouTube feed. Do you promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round? And thank you. I'm going to deem that people watching on YouTube have agreed. And finally, scoring panelists, if you'll raise your right hands. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and as objectively as possible in accordance with the facts and procedures and rules of the mock trial competition? And please say, I will.
I will.
Okay, we've got some others. Stephanie, you're muted. And I
Well,
didn't.
thank you.
I will.
Thank you. Thanks to the three of you. All right. With that, let's begin. Opening statements, please. Start with plaintiffs.
Your Honor, before I go into my opening statement, I do have some preliminary matters I would like to address.
Yes, please go ahead.
Your Honor, the plaintiff would like to request that stipulated facts can be moved into evidence, and we also request this for the defense.
And do you have stipulated facts that have been agreed to?
In the case, yes.
And defense, what's your position on that?
No objection, Your Honor.
Right, stipulated facts are admitted into the case. They should be mentioned during the presentation, during the examinations, however. And any other preliminary matters
Yes,
from
Your Honor.
plaintiff?
We would like to verify that you, the judge, the opposing counsel, as well as the witnesses have a copy of the evidence packet for reference.
Yes, I do have a copy of all the exhibits and I have read the statements.
All right, thank you. Your Honor, we would like to request permission that witnesses and attorneys are allowed to remain seated during the duration of this trial.
That would be fine.
All right. Your Honor, we would also like to request permission that the timekeeper does not have to keep their camera on for the entire duration of the trial, but may turn their camera on when they need to present the remaining time.
And that seems to be all right with the defense. So the timekeeper need not keep your camera on during the trial, but I'm going to say that the timekeeper may, in the timekeeper's discretion, to make sure that the examining attorneys have a chance to see what time is left. Also, with regard to remaining seated, it's up to the examining attorney whether that attorney wishes to stand or be seated. It won't matter to me.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have one final one.
Yes.
The plaintiff would like to request that during our initial closing statement, if there's extra time, we would like to reserve that time for a rebuttal.
just make that known at the time of your, when you begin your opening statement, that you'd like to reserve. The timer can tell you how much time you have left, and well, you'll have the full time for that. Just tell the timer how much time you want to reserve, and the timer will put up the appropriate card for you.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
You're very welcome. Any preliminary matters by the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. We ask that when an exhibit is projected for the witness, that it be considered constructively outside the jury until it is admitted.
Yes, that's fine.
We also ask that after an exhibit is admitted, it be considered constructively and published to the jury.
Well, I think under the rules, there's an indication to me at least that the attorney should ask that it be published. So
Yes, Your Honor.
keep that in mind, and certainly if it's admitted, I will allow it to be published.
Okay, thank you. And finally, we ask that if a technological issue arises that is not obvious to you, that a team member may be able to step in and inform you.
Yes, wave your arms, jump up and down, put up happy birthday balloons, anything to get our attention so we can see what's going on.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Opening statement, please.
Members of the jury, Your Honor, my name is Elizabeth Clement, and I represent Dakota Weirs in this trial. I'd like to introduce you all to Miss Weirs. Miss Weirs, would you please present yourself to the jury? Dakota Weirs is a young woman that had her life ruined by her recent diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. We will present evidence to show that Lush Fertilizer's failure to warn Miss Weirs about the potential harms of Drufo within their product caused Miss Weirs non-economic damages of mental and emotional trauma. For example, she will testify that she cannot attend Juilliard, her dream school, one of the best music colleges in the country, because of her unfortunate diagnosis. The plaintiff will make 3 points very clear: communication, concealment, and claim. We are able to demonstrate these important factors through the witnesses we will present today. Throughout this trial, we will present 3 witnesses. First, we will present Ms. Dakota Weirs, who will testify about the lack of communication about the harmful chemical Drufo within Lush Fertilizer during her time at Haven Landscaping. Dakota will also shed light upon the biases of Skylar Weirs, her twin. Next, we will present Carson Durst, who will testify that Lush Fertilizer concealed the knowledge that Drufo was dangerous, as well as the personal biases of Blake Doncourt, Lush Fertilizer CEO. Finally, we will present Dr. Casey Rogers, who will testify about his experiments with Drufo and its direct link towards cancer. The defense will also present 3 witnesses. Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, will testify about the environmental goals of Lush Fertilizer and that Lush did not warn consumers about any possible dangers caused by Drufo. They will also bring Skylar Weirs, who has no college education and bases her writings off of her own research, to testify about what she claims to be scientific ideas. Finally, Dr. Devin Williams will attempt to disprove Dr. Casey Rogers, despite never having done his or their own published study on Drufo. Dr. Williams will also testify towards the incentive of Lush Fertilizer to conceal the risks of Drufo as a method of expansion of their potentially dangerous product. The plaintiff will be introducing 5 exhibits into evidence, the first being Exhibit 1. Exhibit 1 is a photograph of the ingredients label on a bag of Lush Fertilizer. Exhibit 4 will also be presented, which is an email between Carson Durst and Gary Langley about a research project conducted about the link between non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and Drufo. Along with this, we will be presenting Exhibit 5, which is a non-disclosure agreement that Carson Durst signed upon his hiring at Haven Landscaping. We will also be introducing Exhibit 6, which is a list of Dr. Casey Rogers' qualifications as an expert witness, as well as Exhibit 7, which is a list of his research publications. For these reasons, we are asking you to award damages to Dakota Weirs in an amount of $2 million for the damages of physical and mental pain and suffering, emotional trauma and distress, inconvenience, emotional stress, and impairment of the quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And opening statement for defense, please.
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, Your Honor, opposing and co-counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Emily Duran, and I am joined here today with my co-counsel, Malia Bauer and Mary Strasser, proudly representing Lush Fertilizer in what we believe to be a misguided attempt to find a villain in this very sad story. Non-Hodgkin lymphoma is a terrible disease, a disease that no one should have to endure. But we ask that you please put your emotions aside and focus on the facts and evidence being put before you here today. When you focus on these facts, you will find that the damages Dakota Weirs is attempting to seek are both unfounded and unfair. Lush Fertilizer created a product that works to better the environment, reduce the amount of eutrophication in the atmosphere, as well as nitrate pollutants. Lush's product is a world changer. The ingredient within their product that allows it to be a world changer is in fact Drupo. Please remember that Dakota Weirs has the burden to prove all elements of this case by a preponderance of evidence. And as you sit there, we ask that you ask yourselves 3 questions. Is this science or speculation? Is this proof or postulation? And is this verified or vilification? Before our witnesses will get the chance to speak, you will hear from 2 biased plaintiff witnesses, as well as Dakota themselves. Dakota explains how they are searching for answers, searching to find why non-Hodgkin lymphoma has befallen them. But they are searching for these answers in the wrong places. You then hear from Carson Durst, who has an axe to grind with Lush Fertilizer and much to gain if their competing company earns more market share than Lush. You then hear from Dr. Casey Rogers, who brings to you their own study, a study that has not been peer-reviewed or replicated and is merely just postulation. You then hear from 3 credible defense witnesses. You hear from Dr. Devin Williams, who describes how proof is needed in this case and proof that is not there. Without that kind of proof, Dakota Weirs cannot carry their burden. You then hear from Skylar Weirs, an agritech expert who shows you that there is no causal link between Drupo and cancer, specifically non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And finally, you will hear from Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, who explains how Drupo was designed and created. He also explains that there was no evidence to require additional duties of his company. Finally, if you find that Lush is liable here today, we ask that you please consider the responsibility of Dakota Weirs and reduce their award accordingly. There were safety recommendations put in place, safety recommendations that Dakota Weirs decided not to follow. Lush Fertilizer cannot be at fault for their product if it is not used as recommended. We ask that you find that Dakota Weirs cannot carry their burden of proof and deny their claim for damages. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just finish a note here. All right, a plaintiff will call their first witness, please.
Your Honor, I call Dakota Weirs to the stand.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. Ms. Weirs, you've already been sworn in. Go ahead, Counsel.
Please state your full name and spell out your last for the jury. Dakota Weirs, Weirs. Ms. Weirs, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I play piano. I love the outdoors. I help out a lot in my community. But my biggest passion by far is my music.
How did that passion start?
When I was a little kid, my grandparents had given my parents a baby grand piano for their wedding. And when I was a small child, I would just sit underneath it all day and press on the foot pedals.
How did your grandparents affect you?
Well, my grandfather was an accomplished piano player, and he taught me the basics of piano, but he died when I was 7. I've been playing for him ever since.
What were you planning on doing with your piano skills?
I was planning on making a career out of it. I was going to go to Juilliard on a scholarship, That was, of course, before my illness.
And how did this affect you?
I'm devastated. I would love to go to Juilliard and pursue my dream, but I cannot, as I am currently dealing with this illness.
And if non-Hodgkin lymphoma is not hereditary, what do you believe caused it?
I believe that lush fertilizer caused my illness.
What kind of ingredients are in lush fertilizer?
There are a lot of normal fertilizer ingredients in lush fertilizer, but one of the main active ingredients is Drufo.
And how did you come in contact with Broomfield?
When I was 14, I started working at Haven Landscaping, and I wasn't old enough to use the machinery, so I would spread the seeds, add in the fertilizer. Haven Landscaping used lush fertilizer, which contains Drufo.
Your Honor, may I show the witness and opposing counsel what has previously been marked as Exhibit 1?
Hearsay. Your Honor, Your Honor, Your Honor. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I think you're still muted.
I'm sorry, I sounded like no objection. That is admitted. And if someone on the YouTube video feed has a microphone on, could you please turn that off? Go ahead, please. Admitted.
Let the record reflect that I am showing opposing counsel a copy of what has previously been marked as Exhibit 1. Ms. Weirs, do you recognize this?
I do.
How do you recognize that?
This is the ingredients label on a bag of lush fertilizer that I used at my time at Haven Landscaping.
And what is Exhibit 1?
Exhibit 1 is an exact copy of the ingredients label of a bag of lush fertilizer.
Is Exhibit 1 a fair and accurate depiction of what you originally saw?
It is.
Your Honor, I would like to admit Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objection to Exhibit 1?
Yes, Your Honor. Objection to hearsay.
And was that a hearsay objection?
Yes, it was, Your Honor.
Any response to the hearsay objection?
This is a label off of a fertilizer bag. We are going to go into detail about how we acquired this fertilizer bag. Your Honor, you're muted again. Your Honor, you are still muted.
I'll need you to repeat that.
I was just saying that you were muted.
Let me ask Mr. Can you hear what lawyers are saying? Yeah, I'm getting a lot of echo and feedback, and that's why it's hard to understand anyone. I'm going to ask that everyone turn off their microphone except plaintiff's attorney. All right, thank you. I couldn't hear what your response was about admitting the document.
Your Honor, we are about to go into questioning about how we acquired the lush fertilizer bag, but it is an exact copy according to Dakota Weirs.
Oh, that's fine. I admitted the document, but if you want to go into that, you're certainly welcome to. And I appreciate everyone else turning off their microphones because the feedback seems to have disappeared. And I'm going to turn mine off and try to remember to turn it back on. All right, go ahead, please.
All right. Dakota, where did you locate this ingredients list?
As soon as I was sitting on my couch and I saw a news story about the harmful side effects of Drufo in Lush fertilizer.
What was the news story about?
The news story was about how someone had leaked documents that showed that Lush Fertilizer had lied about the safety of its products and that they knew that it could cause Drufo.
And what did you do with this new information?
I immediately contacted my boss at Haven Landscaping, and I told them about all of the dangers that I had learned about. And I also asked if I could have a exact copy of the label on the bag of fertilizer that I had used.
And what did you find out?
I found out that I had been using Lush fertilizer, and I found that Drufo was an active ingredient in Lush fertilizer.
What did the packaging have?
It had no warnings about how Drufo could cause this disease. It had some warnings about protective equipment that you should wear, and it had warnings about only using the product outdoors.
Did you follow these precautions?
I did what I thought was necessary. I did everything that my boss told me to do, but sometimes it would get hot outside, so I would take off some of the protective equipment.
Were other people following these precautions?
No, almost everybody was in t-shirts and shorts.
And did Haven Landscaping do anything about this?
They did stop using the product after my 3rd or 4th year at the company, but 3 or 4 years is plenty of time to be exposed to the harmful effects of Drufo.
And besides all of this, do you have any other reasons to suspect that Drufo is what caused your illness?
My twin, Skylar Weirs, we did everything together growing up. And the only difference was she has a major allergy to grass. So they did not work with me at Haven Landscaping. And because of this, if I had gotten it anywhere else, logically, they would also have it.
And why would Skylar choose to testify against you in this case?
Skylar has done extensive research on the effects of Drufo. However, she has also written extensively about conspiracy theories like the flat earth theory and anti-vaccination. She just wants the money. She wants anything for the right price.
Is there anything else you can tell me about Skylar?
I don't think so.
All right. How do you feel about this whole situation?
I am worried that Skylar is using her writing skills against me because of her jealousy, because my father is paying my medical bills and is not helping her get out of her gambling debt.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, excuse me, Ms. Weirs. You worked at Haven Landscaping throughout high school.
Correct.
During your employment, you used Lush fertilizer.
Correct.
You also used numerous other fertilizers and lawn chemicals during your employment.
I did.
Is it possible for you to determine how often Lush fertilizer was used as opposed to any other of those chemicals?
I have not, but I remember using Lush fertilizer a lot.
But you cannot say how often Lush was used as opposed to the other ones?
I cannot.
You were instructed by your boss to cover your face and any exposed skin while you were working with these chemicals?
I was, yes, but no one else was, so I didn't either.
So you did not wear these protective coverings while working with these chemicals?
Nobody did.
When you were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, you were devastated
I was, yes.
and you wanted answers.
I did, yes.
So you turned to Google to give you these answers?
I did, yes.
You learned about Jufo on the news.
Yes, I did.
You then searched about Jufo exclusively,
I did, yes.
and you did not try to research any other chemical or product.
I did not because I believed that Drufo was the cause and my research showed me that I was correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness.
I have no redirect, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm glad you could read my lips. As we've been all doing this for years, but I still don't remember to unmute myself. All right, thank you very much. Next witness, please.
Your Honor, I am now calling Carson Durst up to the stand.
Thank you. All right. Witnesses are still under. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Hello there, Mr. Durst. Could you please state your full name and spell out the last for the record?
Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
And Mr. Durst, what is your current job?
I am the lead product developer for Terrace Greenery.
Have you been employed anywhere else prior to this job?
Yes, I used to be a product development engineer for Lush Fertilizer.
And at Lush, were you aware who the CEO was?
Yes, the CEO is Blake Doncourt, who is testifying here today.
And what's your relationship to Blake Doncourt?
I looked at him as a mentor. He was the only one that took a chance on me right out of college.
Okay. And did this relationship affect your employment at Lush?
I mean, he hired me at Lush based on how he knew me, but after that, I won my promotions based on my own merits.
Did your other coworkers feel the same way?
No, my impression was that they were extremely jealous.
And how would you know that?
My performance reviews dipped and I started to get all the jobs that no one wanted.
Did you do anything to try to fix this?
I went up and talked to Blake Doncourt, hoping he could talk to my manager about my performance reviews.
And what happened when you went to go talk to him?
I went up to his office, was talking to his secretary, and he said, "I don't care, just do it. Just do what you need to make it happen."
Okay, and then what did you do after that?
I went inside his office to go talk to him. He seemed pretty upset. I should have probably given him more space, but I asked if he could talk to my manager for me.
And what was his response to that?
He basically told me that he wouldn't help me.
After that, how were you feeling?
I guess I was feeling betrayed. Like I thought he had my back in this and he clearly did not.
And did this conversation have an impact on you leaving to go to Terrace Greenery?
A little bit, but I felt like I didn't have a future at Lush, so I left for a better job.
And do you remember signing a non-disclosure agreement when you were hired?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And if I showed you, if I showed it to you now, would you recognize it?
Yes.
Okay. Permission to show the court what has been previously marked as Exhibit 5.
Yes, please go ahead. If that can be brought up on the screen.
What is this?
This is the non-disclosure agreement. Sorry, the non-compete agreement that I signed when I joined Lush Fertilizer.
And do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Is this a clear and accurate representation of the non-compete agreement that you signed when you were hired at Lush?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I move to an Exhibit 5 into evidence.
Objection, hearsay.
Any response to the hearsay objection?
This is a legal document, and so it would go in under, it is an objection to hearsay.
And any response to that?
Your Honor, this is not a business record.
This is actually a business record. This is a normal record that would be signed before anyone was hired.
Your Honor, I believe that they have not laid the proper foundation for a business record.
And I agree with that, but the objection's overruled because a contract, this is little known in the law anyway, a contract is a document with independent legal significance, and it's been identified as the witness's contract. It's not hearsay and it's admitted.
And did you remember this whole non-disclosure agreement when you left Lush?
I had forgotten that I signed the NDA to begin with, but I had to sign a ton of other things when I was hired, so I guess it just slipped my mind.
Okay, and moving into your time with Drufo, what is your connection to Drufo?
I worked on the research team that developed Drufo to begin with. I also researched its carcinogenic properties.
Do you have any communications relating to this research?
Yes, I believe it's an email.
Okay, and then if I showed you that email, would you recognize it?
Yes.
Okay. Permission to show the court would have been previously marked as Exhibit 4.
Go ahead, please. That can be brought up.
What is this?
This is an email from Jerry Langley, our project manager at Lush Fertilizer.
Okay. And is this an email that would normally be sent out during a study?
I mean, I guess so. It's just regular communication between the team.
Okay. And Your Honor, I move to admit Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any objection to Exhibit 4?
Objection, hearsay.
And what's the response to the hearsay objection, please?
I believe on this one, I have laid the proper foundation that this is a normal business record that would normally be conducted anytime a study would have happened.
Your Honor, this is an out-of-court statement and is not a business record.
All right, the foundation for a business record has not been established, but it is a statement by a party opponent. And this person's been identified as an employee of the defendant company, so it will be admitted.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. And what was said in this email?
There were concerns regarding the findings that Drufo is carcinogenic and that it could be dangerous to the user, which we found through research earlier that year.
And who was working on the study with you?
Multiple other qualified scientists worked on the study.
Okay, and was there any time you shared the conclusions that you reached?
Yes, we all had a meeting with Jerry Langley and Alex.
And what was shared in this meeting?
Many scientists had impressions about their findings and worries, obviously, but one scientist study showed a link between non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and Drufo.
What happened after the meeting?
A report was put together outlining the findings of this study.
And was anything omitted from that report?
Yes, the link between non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and Drufo was not included in the final report.
Okay. And what was the conclusion of that report?
The probability of Drufo causing cancer was inconclusive and baking the fertilizer was recommended.
And what would baking the fertilizer achieve?
Baking the fertilizer would make Drufo no longer carcinogenic, and it would make the fertilizer much safer to the user.
And what would be the advantage of concealing the risks of Drufo for Lush in its unbaked form?
Lush would protect its image and keep the possible bad press out, including a carcinogen in their fertilizer.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Durst. You are the lead product developer for Terrace Greenery.
Yes,
And at Terrace Greenery, you are the head of the research and development team.
yes,
You oversee the development of fertilizer and lawn enhancement products.
yes,
You previously worked for Lush Fertilizer.
yes, I did.
Terrace Greenery is Lush Fertilizer's biggest competitor.
I wouldn't say biggest.
And at Terrace Greenery, you mainly worked on a new product on the verge of outperforming Lush Fertilizer's equivalent products.
Yes, I did.
You hope to overtake Lush Fertilizer as having the best-selling fertilizer on the market.
I mean, I wasn't consciously thinking that, but
You know Blake Doncourt, the CEO and founder of Lush Fertilizer.
yes, I do.
In fact, you are best friends with Blake Doncourt's oldest son, Charles Doncourt.
Yes,
You played soccer together on the traveling team.
yes,
The Doncourts were your ride to every single soccer game.
yes, they were.
You had Sunday dinner at the Doncourts.
Occasionally.
You took trips to their lake house in the summer.
Yes,
You and
Objection.
Charles even went to Arizona State at the same time.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
What's the relevance of where they went to college?
Your Honor, it shows that that Carson Durst and Charles were friends and they went to the same college. And
That explains to me the answer you're looking for, but it doesn't tell me why the answer is relevant.
it helped. Okay. I missed. Sorry, Your Honor.
That's all right. Relevance has to do with whether something's more likely than not to prove a material fact and controversy. And you're allowed some leeway with background, but I'm going to sustain this objection. Next question, please.
Okay. You described the Doncourts as the family you never had.
well, I had a family, but that could be said.
You got the internship at Lush Fertilizer.
Yes, I did.
And after 3 months, you were promoted to full-time.
Yes,
When you were hired at Lush Fertilizer, you signed a non-compete agreement.
yes, I did.
And in early 2005, you got an abysmal performance review.
I mean, I wouldn't say abysmal, but it was bad.
This was not your first.
Well, you just said it was my first, so
I did not say that. I said that you got an abysmal performance review.
okay. So I had multiple.
You had conflict with Gary Langley, your direct supervisor,
Yes, I did.
and you went over his head to your best friend's father, the CEO and founder of Lush Fertilizer, Blake Doncourt.
I tried to communicate with him initially, but it was clear that he was not open for that, so I did go to his supervisor.
You told him that Gary Langley had it out for you.
I believed at that point that he did.
Blake Doncourt told you to grow up and just do your job.
Yes, he did.
You left his office
That
disheartened.
was my question.
What was the objection, sir?
That was just a statement. That was not a question asked to my witness.
All right, rephrase the last question, please.
Mr. Durst, Blake Doncourt had told you to grow up and just do your job.
Yes, he did. However, he was upset.
Objection, Your Honor. That's argument. That's not a question.
Well, it's just a matter of phraseology. I'll overrule the objection. You can answer, sir.
Can you state the question again?
Blake Doncourt had told you to grow up and just do your job. Correct?
Yes. Yes, he did, but he was mad in that moment.
And then you left his office disheartened.
Yes, I did.
You were seething by the time you got to the lab downstairs.
Yes.
You felt betrayed by someone whose family you felt you were part of.
Yes.
You learned that Tara's Greenery had job openings,
Yes, I did.
and you knew that they were one of Lush Fertilizer's biggest competitors.
Yes.
You knew that Blake Doncourt and the CEO of Tara's Greenery had nothing but bad blood between them.
I guess so.
Objection, Your Honor, that's speculative.
Any response to that objection?
Your Honor, this is in the witness's statement.
Well, it still could be speculation, but the question did not call for speculation. It asked a question that the witness was able to answer, overrule.
And you thought that would really get Blake's goat.
That was
Objection, Your Honor, that question is calling for speculation.
Any response?
Again, Your Honor, that is a direct statement from Carson Durst's witness statement.
Well, and once again, witness statements can be full of speculation, but this question asked the witness how he felt about that. And so it is a question and doesn't speculate as to an answer. You may answer the question, sir, about how you felt about it.
There were other reasons that I decided to go to Lush. It was not my primary reason.
When you were fired from Lush Fertilizer, you'd already been hired at Tara's Greenery.
Yes, I had.
Your Honor, may Exhibit 5 be displayed on screen?
Yes, please put up Exhibit 5, which is admitted.
Mr. Durst, this is the non-compete agreement you signed at Lush Fertilizer.
Yes, it is.
Is this a true and accurate copy that you signed on June 1st, 2003?
Yes, that was established earlier in the case.
And on the second page, that is your signature.
Yes, it is.
And in signing this non-compete agreement, you agreed to and adopted its terms.
Yes.
Let's look at paragraph 1. This states that during the employment and for a period of 2 years after the separation of employment for any reason, the employee will not directly or indirectly engage in any competitive business and shall not become directly or indirectly engaged in any business that would benefit from the disclosure of Lush Fertilizer's trade secrets.
Yes, that's what it is.
You felt so applying for and taking the job from Tara's Greenery, which is Lush Fertilizer's biggest competitor, was in fact directly engaging from business that would benefit from the disclosure of Lush Fertilizer's trade secrets.
Yes.
But you had felt betrayed by Blake Doncourt and you decided that you needed to take care of yourself.
This was strictly a business opportunity again.
They even sued you over this.
They did.
That's all my questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect, please?
A brief redirect, Your Honor. So, Mr. Durst, you had forgotten about the non-disclosure agreement, correct?
I had. Again, there were many other documents I signed that day, and it just slipped my mind.
Okay. And you weren't trying to anger Blake with your leaving of the company.
I was not. Again, I still considered him a mentor and a close family friend, so I was not upset.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much. And next witness, please.
Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
Thank you. Dr. Rogers, please. And Dr. Rogers has already been sworn in. Go ahead, please, counsel.
Please state your name for the jury, spelling the last for the record.
I am Casey Rogers, Rodgers.
So, Mr. Rogers, what is it that you do for a living?
I'm currently employed as a professor in the Department of Horticulture and Entomology at California University in Berkeley.
What education do you have that is pertinent to this case?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry and agriculture. I got a PhD in agriculture and entomology from California University in Berkeley.
What experience besides teaching do you have that is relevant to this case?
Before earning my PhD, I was a research analyst for a multinational chemical company. I've also published numerous scholar articles that have warned people on the effects of prolonged exposure to various chemicals, including Drufo.
How have these scholarly articles been used?
My research has been used in litigation and has been presented in front of an administrative advisory board. I've also made recommendations to farm laborers and regulatory agencies on the precautions that should be taken.
Did you prepare a CV and list of published works in preparation for this case?
Yes.
Your Honor, permission to show the courtroom what has previously been marked as exhibits 6 and 7.
Any objection to 6 and 7? Well, I'm sorry. Yes, you can show the witness exhibit 6 and 7.
Let the record reflect that I am showing the court what has previously been marked as exhibits 6 and 7. Mr. Rogers, do you recognize these documents?
Yes.
What are they?
They are my CV and copies of my publications.
And is this a clear and accurate representation?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to admit exhibits 6 and 7 into evidence.
Thank you. Any objection to exhibit 6 or 7?
Yes, Your Honor. Hearsay?
Any response to the hearsay objection?
Your Honor, this does not qualify for hearsay because the witness is here in front of me to test on the validity of these documents.
All right, thank you. It's an interesting objection because it is submitted for the truth of the matter asserted, which is the facts in here. Defense counsel, you had something else you wanted to say?
Yes, Your Honor. I do not believe that the proper foundations have been laid for this to be admitted into evidence.
Your Honor, I believe that I have laid the proper foundation because my witness already stated their qualifications, which are listed in their CV, and this is simply for the sake of the jury to have a visible representation of my witness's qualifications.
Oh, all right. I'm going to allow it in, but I'll tell you, when I was trying real cases, it always gave me heartburn to do that because I think it was cumulative, but I'll allow it in for today's session.
For the sake of the jury, can you point out some of the published works on Drufo you have completed, Dr. Casey Rogers?
Yes, I completed the evidence of human exposure to Drufo, a review in the Environmentalist, and I also completed a work called Drufo Toxicity and Carcinogenicity, a review of the scientific basis of European Union assessment in biotechnology information.
Your Honor, I move to admit Dr. Casey Rogers as an expert in the field of chemistry, entomology, and agriculture.
Any objection to considering doctor as an expert witness in that field?
Your Honor, I was not given the chance to object to Exhibit 7 being admitted into evidence, and my objection is relevance.
Excellent point. Thank you. Any response to the relevance objection to Exhibit 7?
Your Honor, Exhibit 7 is relevant simply because it offers further background as to why my witness should be considered as an expert and offers the opportunity for the jury to understand why he is qualified to testify on this topic today.
I think it is relevant because it contains many publications about the chemical compound that we're dealing with in this hearing, so it will be admitted.
All right, Your Honor, so can I move to admit my witness as an expert in the field of entomology, agriculture, and chemistry?
Yes, any objection to that?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, the witness will be qualified as an expert in those fields.
All right, doctor, what did you find when conducting research on Drufo?
I believe that it was rushed to the market without sufficient study on its safety. So I decided to conduct my own study to see if there were any adverse health effects in people who were exposed to Drufo over long periods of time.
And for the sake of the jury, what exactly is Drufo?
Drufo was developed in 2003 by the scientists in Lush Fertilizers Research and Development Team. And it's a patented ingredient that Lush uses in all of its products as a bonding agent, specifically to keep the fertilizer intact.
And what motivated you to research Drufo?
I've been hearing reports on the potentially negative effects of the substance, and that is found to be carcinogenic in rats.
Okay, and you mentioned conducting a study on Drufo. Could you tell the court a little bit about that study?
The study included a control group of people who had not been exposed to Drufo, a group of people who had moderate exposure, and people who had regular exposure almost on a daily basis. Those people who were exposed to Drufo included farm laborers and gardeners who used the fertilizer in the field and their gardens while picking their crops and maintaining gardens.
How long did that study last?
The study monitored the groups over a period of years following the exposure. The groups who had exposure to Drufo were monitored for various health conditions and compared to the control group.
What were the results of that study?
The study found an increase in serious health conditions and diagnoses in those individuals who were exposed to Drufo as compared to the control group.
What kinds of diseases?
Specifically, the study found a higher incidences of cancer, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The study found that those with prolonged exposure were 10 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer, and those with a moderate exposure were 5 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer as those. These results suggested that this is a correlation between exposure to Drufo and cancer, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
How could someone get non-Hodgkin lymphoma from using Drufo-infused products?
Well, since non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is usually caused by exposure to environmental condition like pesticides, the toxins in the pesticides can be absorbed through the skin and inhaled through the respiratory system.
And what are the symptoms of non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Symptoms include night sweats, fever, weight loss, tiredness, loss of appetite, and itch all over the body.
And what are the effects that this disease has on someone's life?
For starters, the 5-year survival rate for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is 72%, but obviously can be hindered by other things like type and stage of lymphoma. In addition, the cancer can be controlled but never cured through a variety of different methods.
Referring back to your study, what group would Miss Wares fall into?
But no, most notably, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma affects the mutant.
Doctor, referring back to your study, what group would Miss Wares fall into?
The ones with the most exposure almost daily.
Why would Miss Wares fall into this group?
Because she worked at a fertilizer company and applied it to the crops on the fields.
In your professional opinion, is Drufo dangerous?
Yes.
Was Dakota Ware's life-altering cancer the result of her exposure to Drufo?
Yes.
That will be all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination, please.
Yes, Your Honor, but before we get started, is it possible to get a time check for the cross?
Well, cross is 20 minutes and you haven't started yet, right?
Well, how much time do we have left on our cross examinations?
Currently, you have 11 and a half minutes left for cross-examination.
Okay, thank you. All right. Good morning, Dr. Rogers. You are a professor of horticulture and entomology at the University of California, Berkeley.
Yes.
You do not have a degree in toxicology.
Yes.
You are not a medical doctor.
Yes.
And you have worked only as a research analyst.
Yes.
You created some publications, and these publications include articles on Drufo.
Yes.
You also conducted a study.
Yes.
And in this study, you compared people with little exposure to Drufo with people with medium exposure to Drufo to people with a lot of exposure to Drufo.
Yes, and also had a group without exposure.
Okay. And these people that you included are farm laborers and gardeners.
Yes.
And you claim that many agricultural products on the market concern you, not just Drufo.
Yes.
And you do not know the specifics to which these farm laborers and gardeners used these other agricultural products.
Yes.
You are unaware of the frequencies to which they use these products.
No, I conducted my research in moderate uses of it, high uses of it, and none uses.
That is to the chemical Drufo, but you do not know the frequencies to which these other products were used.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
And what's the response to the relevance objection?
Your Honor, I believe that this is relevant because I am asking Dr. Rogers why or how he decided to do what he did for the study.
Any response to that?
Your Honor, the attorney is asking questions about other chemicals not related to Drufo, but this study was conducted simply on Drufo.
All right,
You did not have to answer outside the scope of their knowledge.
well, outside the scope is a lack of foundation of personal knowledge and not relevance, so I'm not going to address that, but the objection is overruled.
Dr. Rogers, you created a list of safety measures, and these safety measures include things like wearing long garments such as long sleeves and long pants.
Yes.
You also, on that safety recommendation list is an N95 mask.
Yes.
And so as an expert, you believe that Dakota weirs could have been protected.
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Any redirect? Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, a brief redirect. Dr. Casey Rogers, what education do you have again that is pertinent to this case?
I have a bachelor's science degree in agriculture and chemistry, and also a PhD in horticulture and agriculture.
That will be all, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll go to the defense witnesses. First witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense calls Dr. Devin Williams to the stand.
And doctor, you're already under oath. Go ahead, please.
Dr. Williams, can you please state and spell your name for the court?
Devin Williams, Williams.
Can you please tell us how you earned the honorific doctor?
Yes, of course. I have a PhD in pharmacology and a toxicology specialization.
Can you tell us what that means exactly, pharmacology with a toxicology specialization?
Well, my education emphasizes how biological systems respond to environmental interventions.
Do you have an employer?
Yes, I do.
Who is your employer?
Well, I have two employers. My first employer is I am a tenured assistant professor at the University of New Mexico. I teach toxicology there. And I also am the lead of the toxicology research and development labs at Lush Fertilizer and serve as the ongoing chair of the ethics committee.
So you're a professor as well?
Yes, I am.
What are the courses that you teach, Professor?
I teach, forensic toxicology 1 and 2, principle of forensic toxicology, and toxicology of environmental and occupational chemicals.
Do you believe your experience as a graduate level professor is relevant to the issues before us in this case?
Yes, I certainly do. All of what I do, but for example, is I teach a graduate course on toxicology of environmental and occupational chemicals at the College of Pharmacy. It is my understanding that Mrs. Weirs asserts that occupational exposure to chemicals had a toxic effect.
Besides your work and schooling, what work do you do that is relevant?
Well, I was the medical examiner at Lammers County.
Dr. Williams, do you have any certifications?
Yes, I do.
Can you please tell us, excuse me, do you have any professional publications?
Yes, I do.
Can you please tell us what those are?
Well, I'm currently working on a study and I also have other various publications.
Your Honor, I move to have Dr. Devin Williams admitted as an expert in pharmacology and toxicology, specifically toxicology of the environmental and occupational chemicals under Rule 702, so that she may provide opinions under Rule 703.
Any objection to qualifying this witness to give expert opinions?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
In the area of pharmacology and toxicology.
Thank you. Dr. Williams, can you please tell us what eutrophication is?
Of course. Well, nitrogen is a key component of fertilizer. So eutrophication is when nitrogen runs off into the water, causing algae to grow that is harmful to the fish in the lakes that the water gets to. But most importantly, this algae is also harmful for humans. It has the ability to suck the oxygen out of the water, preventing fish and they die, and also could be harmful to humans.
In your opinion, is there anything that can be done to stop eutrophication?
Yes, there is.
What is that?
Well,
Objection, Your Honor, relevance. I don't see how eutrophication is relevant to this case.
Any response to the objection?
Your Honor, it goes to the credibility of the witness and their work at Lush Fertilizer.
All right, I don't think it's really a matter of credibility of the witness. I think it has to do with the I guess dangerousness of the compound. I'm going to let it in. Objection overruled. You may answer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Williams, what do you think can be done to stop eutrophication?
Well, in simplest terms, it's DRUFO. DRUFO has the ability to chemically combine the nitrates within the plants to halt the eutrophication process right at the beginning.
Dr. Williams, what is your job exactly at Lush Fertilizer?
My job is to oversee work on the environmental impacts of Lush's products.
In your position, did you participate in the analysis of DRUFO?
Yes, it did.
Did this include whether there was an increased risk of any cancer, including non-Hodgkin lymphoma, in chemicals that have DRUFO listed as an ingredient?
Yes, it did.
Did you find any results?
Yes, I did.
What were those results?
Well, with the data that I've analyzed, it all came back in normal confidence level.
Can you please tell us what that means?
Well, in other words, all the data that we looked at was consistent with the use of the fertilizers, with Drufo not having an elevated risk for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma compared to the use of other fertilizers.
Has Drufo been correlated with a statistically significant increase in the incidence of cancers, including non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
No, is it
Objection, Your
not?
Honor, leading.
The objection was leading. What's the response, please?
Your Honor, may I please ask to rephrase?
Sure, you can rephrase it.
Dr. Williams, in your study, have you found that Drufo has any significant harmful causes?
No,
Objection,
I
Your
have
Honor,
not.
that's still leading.
Any response to the leading objection?
Your Honor, I don't believe my question was leading.
Yeah, the objection is overruled. The question was not leading and just asked what the findings were.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
You can answer that question, ma'am, doctor.
Thank you. No, it is not. And also, I think there's something I need to explain that needs to be understood.
What is that, doctor?
I think it would be best if I explain it in a statistical element.
Please do.
Well, say if you take a jar of 100,000 jelly beans and there is the exact amount of red and blue in there, and you were to take out, let's say, 10, you're not going to get exactly 5 of each. The statistical formulas that just go against the probability of this happening. The likelihood is not enough for amount. So if you were to have 100,000, like I said before, the likelihood is too remote. It just leads to the confidence level of there not being exactly 100,000 each of the probability of it being exact.
Objection, Your Honor, narrative.
Any response to the objection?
Your Honor, my witness has finished her response.
So, sorry.
Yeah, the objection came in after the answer was in. And I don't think it was a narrative. It was just discussing probabilities.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next question, please.
Okay, thank you. How exactly does this relate to the incident of non-Hodgkin lymphoma or any other cancers?
Well, this just explains the confidence level. There is not verified scientific studies that prove a connection between Drufo and cancer in human fertilizers, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. What you have heard today is postulation, speculation, and vivification of a company striving to improve the environment.
And how exactly is that significant here?
This is significant. I'm sorry, can you please repeat your question?
Yes. How is that significant here?
It's significant because there is no verified proof that Drufo is correlated with these types of cancers.
Dr. Williams, are you aware of the study that Dr. Rogers talked about?
Yes, I am.
Do you have an opinion on the study?
I most certainly do.
What is that opinion?
Objection, lack of foundation.
Any response to the objection for lack of foundation?
Your Honor, I think I have laid enough foundation for the witness to be able to talk about Dr. Rogers' study.
All right, thank you. The witness has been qualified as an expert witness and can testify to her opinions on various topics. Examining the basis for that opinion is allowable on cross-examination. The objection's overruled.
Thank you. Dr. Williams, what is your opinion on Dr. Rogers' study?
I'm glad that you can ask me that. I could really use Dr. Rogers' study as an example of incomplete work.
What do you mean, doctor?
Well, you have to understand the difference between science and speculation and between proof and postulation. We use the scientific method to verify replications and have peer review for a reason. I applaud the curious mind, for I have been working with students for years. That is what I do. And I ask them to come up with postulation, something they want to study all of the time.
How does this relate to Dr. Rogers' study specifically?
Well, I always warn them, when you're set to find what you're trying to find, you always have to question the results. That is exactly what Dr. Rogers has done here.
Do you see anything wrong with the study?
Yes, I do.
Please explain what you see wrong with the study.
Well, you have to compare apples to apples for a reliable study. The first thing with Rogers' study was it wasn't done. The group studied farm laborers and gardeners versus the people who don't do any of those things. It didn't take into account that farm laborers and gardeners are exposed to many different things that could impact the environment in a toxic way for the study group and for Mrs. Weirs as a fact.
Why do you think that creates a problem with the study?
Well, a valid study would need to compare something like farm laborers who use exclusively durable fertilizers to farm laborers who use fertilizers without. And that is not what Mr. Rogers did. Any group of people is going to have some that develop non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Rogers is not proving that those in his group with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma has developed this because of Drufo. He is not controlled for all of the outside factors and exposures. It leaves this study as an example of postulation and speculation.
Are you confident in Dr. Rogers' study?
No, I am not.
Why aren't you confident?
Well, in order for besides, the fundamental fact of how the study was run, there has been no peer review or replication of this study.
Do you believe those steps are essential?
Yes, of course.
Please explain why.
Well, in order for us as a community to rely on someone's work and me as an expert, these steps are crucial to be taken. If they're not taken, it's what we call as junk science.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. I have no further questions for this witness.
Thank you. Cross-examination, please.
Okay. Dr. Williams, you worked at Lush, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you would say that when your customers do well, or when you do well, you would say that selling a product would make your financial situation better, correct?
I mean, that's how selling things work, yes.
Okay. And being a high-level executive at Lush, good sales would mean good money.
I mean, of course, that's how a company works.
Okay. And you led the toxicology labs at Lush?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you are actually the outgoing chair of the ethics committee.
Yes, I am.
Okay. And are you aware that Drufo is banned in the EU and many countries throughout the world?
Yes, I'm very aware of this fact.
And Lush could have actually appealed the ban, couldn't they have?
Yes, they could.
Okay. But Lush didn't fight this ban.
Of course, it was the start of a company.
And if this is such a revolutionary product, why would Lush would have wanted? Sorry, but it would have been more ecological to appeal it, correct?
I'm sorry, may you please rephrase your question?
Sorry. Yeah, it would have been more, you say in your statement, it would have been more ecological to have appealed the ban. Is that not correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Lush is actually currently appealing this ban.
Yes, I do believe so.
And you say it would be detrimental to the ban appeal if this case would go against you.
Something along the lines of that. Yes, I did.
Did you not say that in your statement?
No, I did, Your Honor.
And I understand that you base your assumptions about Drufo on your company study. Is that correct?
Yes, I took a part in it.
Okay. But you neglected to do your own independent study.
I wouldn't say exactly, but yes.
You didn't do a study for this case, did you?
I mean,
You
yes, I
yourself
did a
did
study
not.
on Drufo.
But you did not do an independent study yourself.
No, two more opinions are better than one.
Unlike Dr. Rogers, who did his own correct study, you did not do an independent study for this case.
Dr. Rogers' study was not done.
Okay. Can you say with 100% certainty that Miss Weir's cancer was not caused by Drufo?
Yes, I'm fully confident of this.
Could you said you have 100% certainty that Miss Weir's cancer was not caused by Drufo?
Well, I would say not 100% certainty, but I am almost fully certain, yes.
Oh, sorry, no, redirect, Your Honor.
I didn't hear the defense plaintiff's counsel say it was done.
Oh, sorry, I misheard that. I'm so sorry.
We are no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, and no redirect. Thank you very much. Next witness, please.
Your Honor, the defense calls Skylar Weirs to the stand.
Thank you. And Ms. Weirs, you're already sworn in. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Ms. Weirs. May you please state and spell your name for the court?
My name is Skylar Weirs, Weirs.
Ms. Weirs, what is your occupation?
I am an investigative journalist and I work for The Rationalist, a science advocacy and science education magazine.
And what specifically do you write your articles on?
I write my articles on conflict between individual health and corporate policies.
Have you ever written about agritech or fertilizer?
Yes, I have.
And have you ever researched or written about Drufo?
Your Honor.
Just hold on for a second. It's really hard to hear plaintiff's attorney. So could you move closer to the microphone, please?
Your Honor, can we please have Skylar Weirs speak up a little more?
Sure. Ms. Weirs, can you speak up a bit? Maybe move. It's kind of ironic, isn't it, that I couldn't hear you ask her to speak up. That's great. Go ahead, please. Continue.
Have you ever researched or written about Drufo?
Yes, I have. I've been researching Drufo for a while now, and it has been a part of a series of agritech that I have been researching and have published.
And how long did you spend researching Drufo?
I've spent about a year.
How did you go about your research?
I would look at various different corporate policies, and I would track down information specifically from the USDA and the NASDA.
Your Honor, I now ask that Ms. Weirs be admitted as an expert in agritech.
Any objections to Ms. Weirs being qualified as an expert in that field?
Objections, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Weirs may testify as an expert and give opinions in the area of agritech.
Ms. Weirs, you mentioned that you spent around a year researching Drufo. Did you find anything regarding Drufo and cancer?
There is no causal link between Drufo and cancer.
And did it find this with any level of certainty?
No.
Have you researched other grass seed products?
Yes, I have.
What did your research find regarding these grass seed products?
The International Agency of Cancer categorized arsenic as a carcinogen, and it also recognized glyphosate as a possible carcinogen. And Drufo does not contain arsenic or glyphosate in its product.
And what's different about Drufo?
Drufo bonds with lush fertilizers. This is not within the witness's field of expertise.
Any response to that?
Your Honor, I did not hear the objection. Can it please be repeated?
The question was, what's different about Drufo? And the objection, as I heard it, was it's not within the expert's field of expertise.
Proper expert opinion.
Your Honor, Ms. Weirs was admitted as an expert in agritech, and Drufo is part of the agritech field. So the witness should be able to testify about Drufo.
And any response to that, please?
I don't believe she was talking about Drufo in the question prior.
Perhaps I misheard the question. Would you repeat the question?
So what is different about Drufo from other grass seed products?
All right, with that question, I overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Drufo bonds to lush fertilizers' active ingredients, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. This means that Drufo isn't washed away as quickly, and lush fertilizer would only need to be applied once or twice a year.
So in your understanding, what would that mean for the user of Drufo?
The user of Drufo is patented, and it doesn't get washed away, and so you'd only have to apply it once or twice a year, while other fertilizer companies, you'd have to apply it 5 to 6 times a year.
So in your research and understanding, what is the effect on agritech competitors such as Terrace Greenery?
Drufo is patented. There has been millions of dollars spent on the old guard of agritech to destroy the reputation of lush fertilizer, since lush fertilizer is so prevalent in the fertilizing industry because it only needs to be applied once or twice a year. Yeah.
Ms. Weirs, what is your relationship with the plaintiff?
Dakota Weirs is my twin sister.
So why are you testifying today that Drufo did not cause their health problems?
I stand by my research. I have been researching Drufo for a year now, long before Dakota was even diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Like I said, it's been a part of my research for a year, and I do feel very poorly for my sibling. It's very sad to see them lose their the instrument that they play, and it's very upsetting. But I do stand by my research, and everything that I have found is that there's no causal link between Drufo and cancer.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination, please.
Good morning. I'm glad you're able to be here. Isn't it true that you are in major amounts of debt?
Yes, that's true.
And isn't this due to a gambling problem that you developed?
Yes, I do gamble, and I do enjoy it, and many other people do.
And would you say that testifying as a witness with opinions as valued as yours generates a solid income?
Please say your question again.
Would you say that testifying as a witness with opinions as valued as yours generates a solid income?
Yes.
And so why do we have any reason to believe that you aren't doing this for the money?
I am not doing this for the money. I do stand by my research. I have been researching this for a year now. And like I said, it was before my sibling's diagnosis. And
let's move on. Although you were admitted as an expert witness, you did not attend an accredited college. Is that correct?
No, I did not.
So that means you do not have a degree in your field of study. Is that correct?
No. that is not correct? That you do not have a degree in your field of study?
No,
from
I
an
do not.
accredited college? Okay, thank you. And although you say you do not need a college degree for this kind of research, isn't there some kind of uncertainty that goes with this kind of unprofessionalism?
No, because I do research, all of my research from the USDA, or most of my research from the USDA and the NASDA.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you very much. And call the third witness, please.
Your Honor, could we please get a time check for direct examinations?
Surely.
Your Honor, we currently have 8.5 minutes left for direct examination.
Thank you. Okay, the defense calls Blake Doncourt to the stand.
All right, Mr. Doncourt, thank you very much. You're under oath. You may go ahead with the examination.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Doncourt. Can you please state and spell your name for the court?
Blake Doncourt, D-O-N-C-O-U-R-T-T, and it's 2 T's.
Thank you. Mr. Doncourt, are you currently employed?
I am, yes.
And where are you employed?
Your Honor, is there any way that Blake Doncourt can please speak a little bit louder?
Sure, sir, would you get a little closer to the microphone, please? Thank you.
Mr. Doncourt, would you like me to repeat that question?
Yes, please.
Where are you currently employed?
My company, Lush Fertilizer.
And what are your specific roles and duties for the company?
I'm the Chief Operating Officer, the CEO.
And what product is your company about?
We are a fertilizer manufacturing company, so our main product is our flagship and namesake product, Lush Fertilizer.
And what does this fertilizer do for the grass?
Well, for one, it makes your HOA incredibly jealous of you because your grass is so lush. It cleans up the nitrogen footprint, or reduces it, excuse me, within your grass in your yard. It's just really good for the environment.
Mr. Doncourt, would you consider your company a success?
I'd like to think so, yes.
And as a result of your company being a success, what have you been able to do?
Well, we've been able to donate 10% of our profits to charity because of our success. We've been instrumental in writing and creating legislation on both the state and national level. We have been, we've won the SEAL Sustainability Award, the UN Champions of the Earth Award. I won that one specifically myself.
Thank you. And Mr. Doncourt, what is your reason for being here today?
I believe that, well, Dakota is distraught about her medical predicament and wants to find someone to blame for it.
What is the ingredient that is in your product that is associated with why we are here?
That would be Drufo, I believe.
Mr. Doncourt, I'd now like to talk to you about your relationship with Carson Durst. Was Carson employed for your company?
Yes, he was for a time in the early 2000s.
And what did they do for your company?
So he was a product development engineer, which is in our research and development department.
Was it Carson's job to let you know about any potential risk of harm to subjects using the product?
Objection, Your Honor, leading question.
And your response, please?
Your Honor, may I rephrase the question?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Doncourt, what were the specific duties of Carson Durst?
So his specific job title and as a product development engineer, he was supposed to bring to light any dangers associated with Drufo, and those would eventually come up to me.
And did Carson ever warn you about these risks?
No, not to my knowledge.
Mr. Doncourt, are there warning labels on your product specifically for non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Not for that specifically, no.
And why not?
Because one, we have not, through our in-house studies, we have not found any evidence that non-Hodgkin lymphoma is caused by Drufo and Lush itself. And two, there are no regulatory laws within the United States that require us to put warning labels on our products.
Mr. Doncourt, do you blame Dakota Weirs for why we are here today?
No, not at all.
And is there anything that you would like to say to Dakota?
I feel incredibly terrible about Dakota's medical predicament. And I hope that Dakota gets a lot better soon since it was caught early.
To your knowledge, was there any sufficient evidence to require additional duties of your company?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination, please.
All right, Mr. Doncourt, you are aware that Casey Rogers, the expert witness on the plaintiff, has conducted a study concluding that Drufo leads to non-Hodgkin lymphoma, correct?
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
And your company still neglected to put a warning on your product?
Through our in-house studies, we have not found anything sufficient enough to warrant that.
Okay, but you still are aware that Casey Rogers has conducted a study that Drufo leads to non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
I am aware of that. My company does not believe that it was complete.
Okay, and you blame money-hungry lawyers and unscrupulous people, and I quote for this lawsuit.
Yes.
Not the woman Dakota Weirs, the one with non-Hodgkin lymphoma that was affected by your products.
No, I do not blame Dakota.
Okay, moving on. Is it true that Carson Durst could have brought forward his claims about Drufo to you personally when he was working on Lush's research and development team?
He could have, however, I never got anything.
Since it was her job to look for dangers and risks in your products?
Yes, that was his job.
But yet she was still fired conveniently when that claim first came up and started working for Tara's Greenery?
Carson was fired, yes.
Could you please turn your attention to Exhibit 4? I will have my co-counsel bring that up for you. Please direct your attention to the second paragraph of the Exhibit 4. Does it not say concerns have arisen regarding generalized findings of potential carcinogenic qualities identified in samples produced during a period early in the year?
That is what you appear to have read, yes.
And is it also true that you received reports that said that there was no quote unquote significant cancer danger?
I did receive reports that said that.
Even though Carson Durst came forward claiming otherwise when he was on your research and development team?
Nothing ever got up to me.
You are also aware that Tara's Greenery is releasing a new product that is supposedly safer and carcinogenic free in comparison to yours?
I am aware of that. I don't know if it's
correct. With the help of Carson Durst, who you fired for asserting false claims?
Can you repeat that, please?
With the help of Carson Durst, who you fired for asserting quote unquote false claims?
We did fire Carson Durst.
Moving on, is it accurate that Lush does not bake any of its products?
No, Lush does not bake any of our products.
since it's costly for your company?
That's a reason.
Did you create an amortization table showing the increase in profit that you would get from not baking the fertilizer?
I did create an amortization table, yes.
If I showed you a copy, would you recognize it?
Most likely.
Permission to show the courtroom what has previously been marked as Exhibit 8, Your Honor?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Let the record reflect that I have shown the court what has previously been marked as Exhibit 8. Mr. Doncourt, do you recognize this?
Let me look at it for a second. Yes, 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 I do.
Is this a fair and accurate representation?
Looks like it.
Your Honor, I move to admit Exhibit 8 into evidence.
Any objection to Exhibit 8?
Hearsay, Your Honor.
And what's the response to the hearsay objection?
Your Honor, the witness is here to assert the truth of the matter and can testify to the validity of this specific document.
All right, with the fact that he prepared a document and he recognizes this one does not typically establish that it is the document from his business records. And it doesn't have any logos or identifying information. So normally I would exclude it, or I would sustain the hearsay objection at this point, but I'm going to allow it in for purposes of the mock trial.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is it true that the table shows that Lush could increase its profits by 6% in the first year, and an additional 2% per year if the company did not bake the fertilizer?
That is what it appears to say.
And you needed these earnings to pay the vulture capitalists who provided your company with seed funds, correct?
Venture capitalists, yes.
And you still failed to publish these financial findings, is that right?
There's no law that requires us to do that.
And do you admit that baking the fertilizer would remove any risk that the fertilizer was carcinogenic?
It could.
But the baking process was just too expensive, correct?
Sounds like what you said is correct.
And you are being forced to pay spousal support to your ex-spouse, Morgan, correct?
Yes, that happens in a lot of divorces.
Along with taking care of yourself and your new partner?
Yes.
And making significant contributions to environmental charities?
Well, I want to help the environment as much as I can because we're all living in it, and why not make it as great as we can?
But you still do not have enough to bake a carcinogenic fertilizer to make your product safer.
Can you repeat that question, please?
But you still do not have enough to bake a carcinogenic fertilizer to make your product safer.
Well, I'm not made of money. I can't just pull money out of my pocket and put it into baking.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor. The defense rests.
And thank you very much. That completes the presentation of evidence. We're going to have closing arguments, and plaintiff indicated that they would like to reserve some time. Do you need a few minutes before we go into closing arguments?
No, Your Honor. And yes, we would like to reserve time at the end for a rebuttal.
All right, and how much time would you like to reserve?
Whatever's left on of the 5 minutes after I finish, if that's okay.
That's fine. Just make sure you watch the timekeeper so that you know what you have left. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Alex Cohen, and I have testified, or I was the attorney for the plaintiff today. This case is not about the environmental pros of a fertilizer. It's not about anything except one woman whose life has been tragically derailed and her dreams dashed by a villain of a company that has refused to take the steps necessary to keep their fertilizer safe. In this trial, the plaintiff has called 3 witnesses. The first being Dakota Weirs, who testified to using Lush Fertilizers products enhanced with this awful carcinogen known as Drufo, and for 4 years, and now is suffering the effects that it has had on her. We also have Carson Durst, someone who's worked at Lush and gave you first-hand accounts of the concealment going on inside of Lush fertilizer on the dangerous and harmful effects of Drufo. And finally, you heard from Dr. Rogers, a qualified expert who did his own study to find that people who use Drufo are more likely to cause cancer. In fact, he even testified that Dakota Weirs has a 10 times higher risk of developing cancer because of her use of Drufo. Now, the defense also presented you 3 biased witnesses. First, we had Dr. Devin Williams, someone who works at Lush and even admitted that this case affects profits entirely. We also have Skylar Weirs, a jealous hit writer with no college degree who's trying to fuel her gambling addiction by taking every penny that people will offer her to write anything. And finally, we have the money-hungry CEO of Lush Fertilizer, Blake Doncourt, who admitted that baking his fertilizer would be too costly for his company. He's putting a cost on the lives of anyone who uses his fertilizer. Through this all, the plaintiff has shown that Dakota Weirs has experienced emotional damages, the mental and emotional trauma and damages with an impact to her quality of life due to the fact that her dreams have been destroyed by this company, and she can now never fulfill her last promise to her grandfather and do well at the piano. We're asking that the court awards $2 million in damages for emotional and mental trauma, impairment to quality of life, physical pain, and for physical, emotional pain and suffering, emotional trauma and distress, inconvenience, emotional stress, and impairment to quality of life. Thank you, Your Honor, or thank you to the court.
Thank you. And how much time is left for the timekeeper, please?
He has 55 seconds remaining.
All right, 55 seconds in reserve and closing argument by the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, now that you have heard all of the evidence, it is clear something is missing. That something is valid, reliable, peer-reviewed scientific evidence that Drufo may cause harm to the user. Depressed about her diagnosis, Dakota Weirs and her father decided to dig around on Google to find someone to blame. However, Lush is not to blame. Lush is not a villain. Instead, Lush is a responsible corporation that has created a product that has completely revolutionized the agricultural industry and turned it into a much more environmentally friendly one. However, along the way, Lush has become a victim for junk science and a target for competitors. Dakota, you have heard from our incredibly reliable, very credible witnesses from the defense who have explained the verified science behind Drufo, as well as why the plaintiff has not met their burden of proof. Dr. Devin Williams, who, using her extensive knowledge, research, and education, explained the science behind Drufo, as well as why the plaintiff presented you with junk science. You also heard from Skylar Weirs, an agritech expert. She told you that Lush Fertilizer's patented breakthrough threatens to upend the old guard on agritech. She also told you that the research is inconclusive at best regarding Drufo as a potential risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma to the user. Skylar Weirs is here today because she knows the difference between speculation and junk science. Lush's stellar corporate citizenship and careful, reasoned decision-making was discussed by Blake Doncourt. Lush is a philanthropic corporation that cares about the environment and the people in it. Blake Doncourt told you that there was extensive testing done on Drufo and it did not identify non-Hodgkin lymphoma as a specific risk. You also heard from the plaintiff's two incredibly biased witnesses. Carson Durst, terminated from Lush Fertilizer, a low-level employee who was not privy to all of the information. He's currently working for Lush's top competitor, and he and his company stand to gain significantly if Lush Fertilizer is vilified today. And what did Carson bring you? A test memo on samples of Drufo written when Dakota was 2 years old. A memo about replicative testing, about taking the responsible steps of researching Drufo thoroughly. Dr. Casey Rogers is a professor eager to become a toxicology expert. His opinion is based upon his own study, a study not peer-reviewed, a study not reproduced by any other scientific research, a study that fits neatly within the victim and villain narrative that Dakota Weirs has convinced herself of. Dakota Weirs was justifiably angry at the world, desperate to pay her medical bills, faced with the tragedy of non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Her team promised her those answers. However, listen to what Dakota herself said. She worked with many other chemicals during her employment at Haven Landscaping. Her team hopes you don't consider the many other possible environmental causes for her non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Listen to what she said. She can't tell you when, where, or how frequently she used Lush Fertilizer. She can just tell you that she ignored the safety precautions. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, your job here today is to determine whether or not Lush Fertilizer is liable for damages to Dakota Weirs because they failed to properly warn users. When making this decision, please keep in mind jury instructions number 2 and 3. These have 4 important elements, each of which must be proved by a preponderance of the evidence. Included is the requirement that Lush Fertilizer knew there was an unreasonable risk of harm. Without that risk, there is no duty to warn users. The plaintiff brought you 2 witnesses, but please ask yourself, postulation, speculation, vilification. No proof, no science, no verification. Should you find liability on behalf of Lush Fertilizer, you must also consider the responsibility of Ms. Weirs and decrease her reward accordingly. She told you that the safety recommendations were intentionally ignored. Lush Fertilizer cannot be at fault if their product was not used as recommended. Dakota Weirs' cancer is a tragedy. However, the plaintiff has not given sufficient evidence to meet their burden and prove a causal connection, or that Lush had a duty to warn of the risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any rebuttal closing by the plaintiff, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Lush is putting a cost on lives. They claim that they're about helping the environment and people, but they're missing the last section. They're not helping people. They're hurting people. Just like the woman that we have here today, Dakota Weirs, whose life has been ruined. Her dreams have been dashed, and her last remembrance of her grandpa, who is now unfortunately deceased, will never, ever be realized because of an uncurable, preventable disease by Lush. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to give the scoring panelists and me 5 minutes to fill out their scorecards, and then I'd ask the panelists when you're ready, just to turn on your cameras. I'm going to turn mine off for a second. Turn on your cameras when I see everyone in. We'll submit our forms, and then we can talk to the lawyers and witnesses.
For the scoring panelists, Mr. Novak requested that you go ahead and send those to him now, if possible, please. Thank you.
All right, it looks like all of us have, I just finished submitting my scorecard. Talk to the, let's talk to the students here. Why don't we go in alphabetical order? And Jonathan, why don't you start off?
Thanks, Judge Moss. I thought both teams did exceptionally well, put forth a really strong case. And I think the difference between the two teams really comes down to the details, really. And I thought both teams could have, both teams can really tighten up their objections, tighten up their responses. And that's really one of the harder things to do in any trial. And so you're not alone in that. But when you're asking a question, make sure that you understand why you're asking the question and the legal justification for it, so that you can really tighten up those responses. And then on the objections, be really clear, be concise, and really make sure those objections are really crisp. I thought both teams also be very cognizant about allowing your witnesses to finish the question. I thought there was a couple times for both sides that they cut off the witness either on a cross or a direct. Make sure that you let your witness finish answering the question before you answer a new question, or to let the court know that you're done asking questions, because it really just kind of takes away from that last answer. And certainly if it's your last question in your cross-examination, your direct, you want to leave on a really high, powerful note, and you're taking away from that if you're not letting your witness respond. And my last thing for both teams, on your crosses, both of you guys struggled a bit on questions like, you are not a doctor, right? And there was an objection that was raised, I can't remember by what team, where it was read more of like a statement. All you got to do is just switch those first two words. Are you a medical doctor, right? You know the answer. It's a no question, no answer. And just tweaking that a little bit, I think will help flow for both teams on your crosses and make sure that they're more effective. I've had the firsthand experience of appearing before Judge Moss, putting before a trial before Judge Moss. So I know firsthand what it feels like from, Judge Moss sustaining objections or overruling objections. And I thought everybody did an exceptionally good job in handling that, moving on, pivoting, thinking on your feet. Putting on a trial is not easy, and you guys did a really, really good job, and I applaud both teams for a great case today.
Thank you. Ms. Farooq, please.
Good morning, everyone. I would echo what Jonathan said. I think everyone did a fantastic job. It's no easy feat what you guys did this morning. Your preparation was clear. Thank you for such an outstanding presentation. My comments are going to be brief, and it's going to be pretty general, but I think it applies to everyone. Some of that has to do with this particular format because Zoom, while it's kind of where we are with life right now, right? But giving a presentation over Zoom presents some unique challenges. And I think there were some really good wins from that. And then I just want to mention something that I think everybody could work on. So you guys obviously practice who's going to bring up what exhibit when. Those were all seamless, I thought. Your partnership and ability to support each other was really fantastic. And that's difficult, right? To get that technology to work. And I think you guys all did a great job of doing that. It's not easy. I recognize that. And I just wanted you to know that that part of your presentation especially was very good. And thank you for that. The challenge of this type of presentation is you really have to look at the camera. You have to focus on putting your eyes on the camera so that you're making eye contact with us. Otherwise, it can be pretty distracting. So if you need to rely on notes, I get that, but maybe try and have your notes up close to where the camera is so that you don't have to break your eye contact quite so much, or work a little bit harder at trying to memorize as much as you can. Again, I know that's hard, but it really does take away from your presentation when we lose your eye contact. So I think everybody could have done a better job of just really staring at the camera on whatever device you're using to make sure you keep that connection with us. It's going to make you a lot more persuasive if we can see your eyes. Overall, great job.
Thanks. Grant Chibo.
I'm probably going to violate Stephanie's point with looking at the camera because my camera is way up here. But I thought everyone did a fantastic job. I was really impressed this year with how prepared you guys were with the exhibits, how easily they were able to be brought up, especially compared to last year where we were still learning how to do this. I won't take too much time. A lot of my notes are the same as what Jonathan and Stephanie have said. I would say, don't be afraid to object to things. There were a few moments in there where there were bells going off in my head saying, don't let that in, don't let that in. But there was no objection. And those are those things that you learn the more you become comfortable with the rules of evidence and how trial works. But I mean, the worst thing that can happen is Judge Moss, overrules your objection. He would probably say as a judge, don't object, don't over object, because he doesn't want to take too much time in trial. But that's just one of those things that you will learn and get more comfortable with. But overall, great job thinking on your feet. Really impressed overall with both teams.
Thank you. Objections in in this exercise are kind of funny because the judges are told, hey, don't sustain every objection because you'll cut off the examination. So make sure people can continue their examinations. So there were some objections that in a regular trial I would have sustained. If you made an objection and it didn't get sustained, it may have nothing to do with the quality of the objection. One of the things that I did notice, and I don't know if you go into this much in your rules of evidence, and that is on these business records. You might want to review there's a requirement for business records to get them past the hearsay rule. Again, I don't specifically remember if all those points that you have to check off to get your foundation for business records are in your rules, but that did come up 2 or 3 times, so you might want to look at that. Another interesting point that I noticed, and lawyers do this all the time in the courtroom, even experienced lawyers, there'll be a relevance objection, and you say, why is that relevant? And what the judge is asking you is, how does the answer to that question move us forward to an issue we have to decide in the case? And the answers that I would regularly get week after week, well, Judge, it's relevant because I wanted to know this information. Well, that's not the same as why it's important to moving the case a point that's necessary for the decision. I know you wanted to ask that information because you asked the question, but just because you ask a certain question is different from how is it related to the issue that has to be decided. All right. I was really impressed with everybody. You folks know how to enter exhibits into evidence. I didn't. Thank you, whoever caught me on that. That was great. I just thought you did a marvelous job in this, and I know how much time you put in, and I want to thank everybody for doing your presentations. That's all I have. Anybody else have anything else? No? All right. Good luck in your, when we're all together live at the courthouse, we could say, okay, we're breaking for lunch and box lunches are going to be served in the jury room. I don't know what you do, but maybe somebody will tell you. And thanks again for letting us watch your performances. Good luck in the next round, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. You're free to go now. Thank you so much.